Well, it is time to hear from the master of slideshows. Have you ever been or have inclination to be a professor? I mean, they're the ones that have to do the slideshows the most.
Randy, if you were to sign up for a course and the teacher's name was Professor Basher, would you sign up for that class?
Yeah, I guess there's you have a good point there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So no,
So, no.
I really contemplated becoming a professor when I sold my plastics manufacturing business. And then I remembered you have to grade homework. And I'm like, what are you, crazy? Never mind. Thank you very
I
much.
I think today in the age of AI, maybe the grading homework wouldn't be so bad if I could just get the AI to do it.
Yeah, well, you just ask the AI where the students got their information. If they got it from the right AI, then they pass. You don't even have to look at the content.
I would like the AI to say, well, I wrote that paper.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of AI, I don't know. I think we'll be talking about some AI related products today, but I'll just I'll let you dig into whatever it is you have in mind.
Sounds good. Yeah, the last time we got together, we failed to talk about something that is very important, and that is the Cybertruck.
Oh yeah,
As you know, I like to share images of Cybertrucks during the show
yes.
as breaks in content, but we talked about Tesla stock so much, we didn't really talk about the Cybertruck.
Yeah, missed out, huh?
So we're going to make amends for that today, Randy,
All right.
among other things. But let's start there first. So first of all, we'll start where we left off last time. This is, if you missed it, a new product announcement from Tesla. Don't know what this car is called yet, but it's pretty sharp. All right. Some folks, one of them or maybe two from Florida,
Right?
drove a mere 5,500 miles to the end of the road at the Arctic Ocean recently.
Yeah.
They took two Cybertrucks and they had to install some chargers along the way, which are now available to anybody. So you could make this trip, Randy.
I know. So interesting.
Yeah. And so the just to show you on a map, there's where they started,
Yeah.
and the blue dot is where they were.
Okay.
So that's a pretty big drive. There's probably not too many places in the world where you can drive that kind of distance.
Yeah. So have they mentioned any inclination now to drive to the tip of South America?
Good question. That may be a bit of an issue for charging vehicles
Take
at
a
this
few more
point.
chargers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. Along the way, you see some interesting things like this. No grizzly bear hunting within 100 meters of either side of the road. So they're not saying no hunting. They're just saying just make sure you're far enough from the road, please. Right? Don't shoot anybody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not that you can't hunt grizzly bears. You might want to out here.
Yeah.
Okay. So interesting trip. You don't see this sign in California. But here's the trucks at their destination.
Mhm.
It's quite a nice vista. I guess you're not really seeing a whole lot out there. It's just a bit of rock and some water, but
Yeah.
that's the Arctic Ocean.
Where's the condos?
Yeah. Yeah. So you can see the trucks got a little dirty on the way, but here's how it looked before it got dirty. Actually, this was after. This was after they got a spa treatment for the Cybertruck.
Uh-huh.
And if you're interested, you can go online and support this. They're selling T-shirts and the sticker. And there's the website, arcticcybertrek.com. And you can get a T-shirt that has this on it, which I think is pretty cool. I've ordered mine, but you can also buy some stickers if you want
Nice.
to, spend a little less to support these guys. But I think it's pretty cool. And Tesla themselves even highlighted what these guys did
Nice.
on X.
I wonder if
So,
they're planning to do expeditions in the future, take passengers.
well, that could be fun. Yeah. Or you can drive your own vehicle up there now that they've installed the chargers along the way.
Chargers. Yeah.
Yeah. They're not superchargers, but just the wall chargers.
Oh, is that what they? Okay.
Yeah. So better than nothing. I mean,
Nothing. Yeah.
you're gonna spend some time in these places anyway, but yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's the Cybertruck content for this show. Just wanted to get that up front, most important thing. Let's talk about humanoid robots.
All right.
It's one of my favorite topics, Randy.
Mine too.
Yeah. And
Since it is,
this was,
since it is
sorry?
going to be, you know, it's going to be eventually Tesla will be the humanoid robot company, and people won't even remember they ever built cars or something like that. I don't know.
That's right. I think people will say, wasn't it quaint that Tesla once made automobiles?
Right, right,
Yeah. Bit like Apple making iPod shuffles and that kind of thing.
right, right.
I found one actually the other day, and I was kind of shocked at what it was and how small it was. Yeah. Anyway, RethinkX put out this post. How much should we invest in humanoid robotics? And I thought it was kind of an interesting question.
Is rethink, is that Tony Seba?
Tony Seba.
Okay.
Okay. So before we answer the question, let's remind people about sort of the advantages of humanoids. So RethinkX is they'll be manufacturable at less than 20,000 per unit at scale, compared to the cost of $300,000 or more of raising a human child in a wealthy country.
Okay.
Okay, so that's kind of interesting to think about, right? If we're talking about labor, we're talking about humans as labor and humanoids then as a source of labor, looking at the cost to rear this labor source.
Yes, and
all right.
And Scott Walter and other people now have also agreed with Scott. The real number for Tesla is probably going to be under 10,000.
Yeah, ultimately, yeah. They will be built in days or hours, not 18 plus years.
Yeah.
Okay. They can be trained and retrained instantly via software download, not over days, weeks, or months, or years like humans.
Mm-hmm.
They will work up to 3 times more hours per day than humans. That one is significant.
Very.
They will require a tiny fraction of supporting workplace expenditures that humans require: bathrooms, food, comfortable temperature, noise, air quality, parking spaces, HR, training, insurance, healthcare, childcare, pensions, stock options, etc. Don't need them.
And I think they missed the most obvious one: management.
Yeah.
They mentioned what do you call it? Didn't they? Oh, HR and training, but they didn't mention the management, which is a big piece.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess since maybe the managers might be making the decision to buy the bots, they didn't want to tell the managers they might be out of work. Yeah, and I've done some work on this, and I have a list of the advantages of humanoids. So there's an extensive list that even adds to this.
I don't know if you remember, your list came out within days of my list, and my list was very, very long. But you added to my we had some things each other didn't have, but your list was actually longer than my list, which I'm glad that my tree is bigger than your tree.
That's good, Randy. We help each other wherever we can. But yes, your tree is very nice, very green in the background. I need to improve my background. Anyway, they can be redeployed instantly to perform any new task without the social or administrative friction of shifting roles or responsibilities. Right? You can go tell the robot to do whatever, and it's not going to have any issue with that. They will perform at a totally consistent level of quality, never compromised by boredom, fatigue, illness, drugs, etc. That's also a key point.
Very key.
And high quality, not low quality, but high quality, with precision in what they do.
Yeah, in fact, again, one of the things I don't remember whose list had what and who didn't, but one of the things about the robot, humans, we talk about the bell curve, you have different kind of curves, but you have 80% of the work is generally done by 20% of the employees. And this is a consistent rule over time. And so if you have your top employee now duplicable instead of the 20%, right there, you get massive amounts of efficiencies.
We're going to have to come up with a new name for the bell curve. Is it the bot curve? I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so let's take this and look at some numbers.
Okay.
So this is from RethinkX. according to the National Center for Education Statistics, the US spends about $1 trillion a year on primary and secondary education, and an additional $700 billion on post-secondary education at colleges and universities. And then we spend about $100 billion on workplace training. So $1.8 billion per year is invested one way or another by individuals, organizations, governments, collectively on investing in human workers.
Right.
And out of that, we have a GDP of about 27.4 trillion. Now, there's other expenses that go into GDP too, right? You've still got to feed the people and clothe them and all the stuff, but they're just saying from a training perspective, a $1.8 trillion investment gets you 27 trillion in GDP. Okay. It's, you know, kind of greatly simplified, but it's instructive, right? And they're saying that that's a 1,500% ROI.
Nice. I'm glad to see
Okay.
that humans are get a good ROI.
Yeah. Now, again, it's overstated because there's other expenses, but I get what they're trying to do here.
Right. Right.
Okay. So that's one thing. The US civilian labor force has about 168 million people, right? And if labor share of the GDP is about 60%, then each working person on average contributes close to $100,000 to the country's GDP per year. Okay. From here, they developed what they called a simple humanoid robotics ROI calculator. And I recreated it here. This is my table, but with their data.
Okay.
Okay. And I was able to recreate their work precisely. So if the lifetime cost of a robot's $30,000,
Okay.
okay, let's say it's $20,000 to make and there's $10,000 of costs, or even if it's $10,000 to make and there's $20,000 of costs along the way, fine. However you get there.
Sure.
And let's say each bot lasts 5 years. We'll come back to the third number in a second. Let's say that the robot's productivity is equal to that of a human, 100%. It can do the work that a human can do. Okay. Maybe it's slower, but because it can work 3 times as many hours,
right,
it can do the work that a human can do. That's a bit of an issue in a factory because you kind of need to keep pace with humans. But let's just assume that the robots eventually are fully capable as a human.
And just so we don't put too fine a point on that, there are lots of positions in factories that have nothing to do with the pace of the other humans.
Yes.
So not all factory workers are on a line.
Right. Yep. Good point. Let's say that here's the human contribution to GDP. There's the $98,000. Okay. So the cost per year for the robot, 30,000 divided by 5 is $6,000 a year. Okay. And if there's 10 million robots in the workforce, that's the third number down. 10 times 6,000 would be a $60 billion investment in robots per year. 60 billion. Okay. But the boost to GDP would be $980 billion because those robots doing work, $98,000 each in GDP contribution generates, you know, almost $1 trillion of extra GDP. On the current GDP of 27.4 trillion, it would now go to 28.38 trillion. Okay, so for an annual investment that's equal to 0.2% of the GDP, you're getting a 3.6% increase in GDP, or a 15x multiplier over your investment.
Right.
Okay, so that's pretty good.
Yep.
Now,
that's assuming only that it's the same value as a human.
Correct. Now, let's say it's half the value of a human.
Okay.
Then the multiplier is 7.5 times. Right?
Right.
Or if it costs twice as much, it's a similar impact.
Right.
So it's still worth doing. Any kind of multiplier that's more than, like, you know, 2 is incredible.
Yeah.
Much less 15.
Right.
Right. So here's how this looks. There's a lot going on in this chart. I'll walk you through it. This is looking at different numbers of humanoids. So the far left, the 10, that's to 10 million. Okay. And so you can barely see the numbers there. But again, that that 0.2% increase, or the 0.2% cost as a share of GDP, that's how much you're spending, you're getting a 3.6% bump in GDP.
Right.
That's the first set of bars over here. Now, as we add robots to the labor force, we now get to this one, which is a point where we have the same number of robots as there are human workers, about 170 million. At that point, you have a 60% improvement in GDP for a 4% cost. Seems like an investment worth doing.
Yeah.
Right. And this is why the leaders of every country on the planet need to be paying attention to humanoid robots and their potential. And ideally right now, fostering the development of those humanoid robots, because there may come a day when the demand for these things are so high, if you can't make them in your country, you're going to be out of luck for a while until there's enough supply.
And you have, and 160 million robots is not a lot.
No.
We're not talking, I mean, we're talking, the US makes this year, a really lousy year, will make over 14 million cars.
Yeah.
So making 20, 30, 40 million, 50 million, even 100 million robots a year is not out of the question.
Yeah. Apple, I think, makes over 200 million iPhones. They could make more if there was more demand.
Right.
That's not the constraint. So yes, the industry will be able to make way more than this in a given year at some point. Okay. What does it take now to get to a doubling of the GDP? Well, you need about 280 million robots, using the numbers from the previous, from the calculator.
Sure.
Right. That's pretty exciting. Now GDP isn't the best, the ideal measure of success, but it's better than nothing. It's kind of the best we've got. Right. So this just shows you the staggering impact that humanoid robots could have on an economy at relatively small numbers. Right. What happens if you have 2 or 3 per person?
Yeah.
Instead of 1 per person. Like at this point where we've got a doubling of the GDP, you've got about 280 million robots. It's almost 1 robot per person in the US. So we've got a population of, I think, about 330 million. So it's almost 1 for 1 at that point. But there's no limit. It could be more than 1 for 1.
And how will we, CERN, how will we measure GDP as this wealth effect takes place? Because I'm sitting here with a 78-inch television on my wall, flat screen, what do you call it? Smart television that does a million times more things than my television would even 20 years ago, for $1,000. I mean, it's $1,000. So that GDP contribution is only the $1,000 that I can remember I spent about $1,000 for 35, those big, what were they, 35-inch TVs that were so popular for a long time, the last of the tube TVs. Those were about $1,000, and now I'm getting this for $1,000. So how do you compute GDP if in fact everything becomes so inexpensive? Yeah,
it becomes a challenge. And that's why I say GDP isn't the end-all be-all measure of economic success. Right? It's about standard of living and free time and all those other things that humans value. But again, as an economic measure, it's kind of the best thing we've got.
Yep.
And there may be increasing challenges in actually measuring GDP as this transformation occurs. Yeah. So I encourage people to look at the Rethink X article. They go a little bit deeper than what we just did today, and explore even higher numbers than what I've just shared. But my message is that this will have a profound impact on our economy and the economy of every other country in the world. And the comparative sort of economic strength of nations is in the balance here, because if we have humanoid bots that can do this work, then there's no reason for us to manufacture anything outside the country.
Right.
So this importing and the exporting that we do, the global trade balances could change dramatically.
Yeah, there may end up being issues of relatives, what do you want to call it? The ores, oil, gas.
The
natural
commodities
resources,
and access to commodities
resources.
will matter a lot more, right? But this could be very disruptive to global shipping, because if you don't have to ship the final product, you don't need all those container ships and all the things that we have to ship all this finished stuff from China or wherever it's made in Asia to the rest of the world.
Yeah, and I think what people really lose sight of too, because most people don't have any interest in looking at the future. So people that watch this channel, I assume, are more interested in thinking about what the future is really going to look like. And I make a joke all the time about the only thing I need my robot to do is great shoulder rubs. But that's not, it's a joke, and yet it isn't. I mean, can you imagine if we have a bot that all it could do was give amazing shoulder rubs, amazing foot massages, at the time when you need them, at the time when you need that relaxation. Maybe it just is somebody that you can play poker with, that you can set the setting on it, but you can talk to it while you're playing. I mean, these are esoteric. They're not like, oh, great, I'm going to get an even bigger television with even more capability, but they are quality of life issues that are amazing, that are impossible without this revolution.
That's an important point. I mean, you're bringing up what seems like a silly point, shoulder rubs. But if the bot can do that, then what else can it do, right? It can do almost everything else that you might need, another person to help you with potentially, or if you didn't want to do it yourself. If the bot can rub your shoulders, then it can do anything in the kitchen,
right,
or anything in your house, right? It's going to be a very, very helpful assistant, and also a companion for many people. And if you can talk to it and give it instructions verbally, that's huge, and that will be a given. It will also talk to you, and it may be a coach, an advisor, right? And say, Randy,
AI already is, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, we're just beginning to, I think, understand, what we may be looking at here. But from an economic standpoint, make no mistake, this is going to have a profound impact on the global economy.
Profound, yeah.
Yeah. All right. With that, let's go to a lighter note. And now we're free falling in an elevator with a couple of bolts. Try the up button again. Now, this feels okay on a day when the market's up.
Yeah, right. So this program is going to probably be out on Friday after the jobs report.
Well,
So
we'll see.
Not 100% sure which way the direction, whether the market decides that the good jobs report was bad news, or the bad jobs report was good news, or vice versa.
So if the market is up tomorrow when this airs, this will just seem like fun silliness. If the market's down, we're going to seem like geniuses.
That's right.
We predicted this.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. This is really hard to see, and I apologize for this. But X is applying to be a payment transmitter in every state in the United States.
Right.
Where are they at? Well, they've got 33 states.
So real quick, a payment transmitter, a PayPal type product. Yeah.
You have to be licensed to accept and transmit payments on behalf of people. Okay, there's some other licenses as well, but this is one of the big aspects of it. And you can see, well, I'm sorry, it's so small. The list of states really is hard to see. The latest one added to the list is Maine. Mm-hmm. Great state of Maine. And they have 33 now of the states. So we've got, just a few more to go before before X will have nationwide coverage.
My understanding.
And I believe that they would want to have every state locked up so that there's no issues with, if somebody in some state that's not yet on this list wants to send me a payment, they can.
Right. So I understand though California and New York are two of the states that they're still working on. Is that correct?
That is, well, no, I see California on the list. It's the fourth one down.
Oh, okay.
New York is not on the list yet. And New York would be a major one.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So what does this mean? Well, Elon has talked about X being potentially the everything app.
Right.
And this would be a critical first step to moving in that direction away from just what X is today. And so the example we have of this is WeChat in China.
Mhm.
WeChat is a very successful everything app. Tencent is the company that owns this, controls this. And this is kind of a nice little chart from a couple of years ago that sort of shows a lot of the things that this company is involved in and what the app does. So the biggest cog here is communication and social. So, you know, think about Facebook, think about X, the community that is, right? Another big part going from the top around to the right is games. My understanding is that games on WeChat is the biggest gaming platform in the world.
Hmm.
Number one globally by revenue,
Wow.
right? Video, think about YouTube, think about TikTok, right? It's the number one online content library and publisher, number one music services provider, right? It's huge in video and content. Fintech, mobile payments, also offering like wealth management services or banking services,
Right.
not just payments. It's also a cloud computing provider. So think AWS,
Right.
right? Google Cloud, and other things. So this is a massive opportunity. If X can be successful in developing something like this in the US, it could disrupt many companies.
Yeah.
Right. And here is Tencent's income statement. If you look on the far right side, their net profit margin is 30%.
Wow.
Okay, now this is in Chinese currency here, so this is not 48 billion in the second quarter. But I think I think it works out to about, could be mistaken, I don't know the current exchange rate. I think it's something like 80 billion. No, I shouldn't say. I don't know what this is in US dollars. I don't know the currency exchange for the Chinese currency to US dollar right now. So I'll hold off on putting a number out there. But this is a pretty sizable business, and
Right.
you can see that all these aspects of the business contribute in pretty major ways.
Yeah.
Right? The social network, even though on the previous page was the biggest cog, it's actually, you know, not the biggest source of revenue. That's gaming, and then the finance and business services aspect of the company. And advertising, which is how X makes most of its money today,
Mhm.
plus subscriptions, is actually not the biggest part of this business.
Yeah.
So that's where X is heading, and we can see today that they're advancing, steadily in that direction. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Changing gears. This is from ARK Invest. This is a chart of what they've labeled here, very large data repositories, trillions of tokens. So the llama training data was trained on, let's say, it looks like it's over 10 trillion tokens. And you can think of a token as maybe a couple of words. So maybe it's 20, 25 trillion words, something like that. Okay. All of the written posts on Facebook are 12 times that.
12 times. Wow.
Okay. So maybe 100 trillion tokens to 200 trillion words, something like that. All the images on Facebook is 20 times that. Okay. All the video and images on Instagram is twice as big as all the images on Facebook. So Facebook has collectively some pretty large data repositories. Now, YouTube says, hold my beer. We're also at that level. The YouTube videos also is a pretty large data repository. Okay. But on the far side, Tesla 2024 annual driving data. This is annual driving data. That data repository is 20x. YouTube 20x, Instagram 20x, well, 40x Facebook. Okay, so just to give you some comparative here in terms of the vast quantity of data that Tesla has at its disposal,
Yeah.
is enormous. Now, maybe this isn't all useful,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And there may be less useful data in this data repository than maybe some of these others, but still, it just gives you some sense of the quantity of data that we're talking about.
Right.
And what's interesting is the developers of these AI models are worried about running out of data.
Yeah.
Okay. And what Elon has said is we'll just have humanoid robots roam around the world collecting data. We're not going to have a problem collecting new data. We'll just have the humanoids do it.
Exactly.
So fascinating that we're talking about quantities of data at this scale. Okay.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. And this is 1,000 trillion tokens here for Tesla's driving data. So 100,000 trillion.
100,000 trillion. Yeah.
Right. So that's 100 quadrillion. Big number. All right. Also, this is also interesting. I'm not sure if you saw this, but OpenAI's Japanese CEO, or the CEO in Japan for that division, suggested that their new model will be 100 times more powerful than GPT-4.
Hmm.
And they confirmed a more advanced model named Orion, slated for next year, that's another 100x increase. Okay, and here's the guy on stage, and here's the chart behind him in Japanese. So GPT-4 is great, but what's coming looks like it's 2 orders of magnitude better, and then another 2 orders of magnitude better again.
And then the assessment, the assumption from almost everybody I've listened to, including Jensen, is that pretty much all of the mega tech companies that are in the race will be in the ballpark. Somebody might be the ultimate winner, but that this is going to be a multi-horse race.
I believe so. The stakes are huge. And they're all careening down this path of building bigger and bigger compute centers, data centers, powerful supercomputers to crank all this out, to work on all this data. The stakes are absolutely enormous. So these companies cannot afford to be, to jump off of this rat race yet, right? Like we'll see. And I think that Mark Zuckerberg, I think, said a day or two ago that it's still unclear whether or not achieving massive scale is going to continue to yield the results. Like they're making this investment without any certainty,
right,
that they're going to get to where they want to be. But he said they're pretty sure that they're on the right path.
Well, and the one company that has clarity that they're going to get an ROI on their investment is, well, the 2 companies, its partner xAI, and Tesla. All 3 companies have an existing massive application for the content.
Yeah. It now seems very clear, at least to me, that Tesla is pursuing the right path. Right. Building bigger and bigger models for autonomous vehicles, for FSD, is the right path.
And
that programming the cars is not the right way. Right. It is better to have these AI models learn for themselves, and to do that, you need massive compute.
Right.
And they will be on this path of building out massive compute for years to come. FSD will never be solved. It'll just hit different milestones along the way. It'll be safer than 50% of humans, and then safer than 95% of humans, and then safer than every human. But even then, it still needs to improve.
Right.
Because they want to minimize accidents and the accident rate over time, and get that down to as low as possible, close to 0 as possible. And we're a long way from that. Yeah. Now, it doesn't have to get there in order for FSD to be useful and to be, a business and generating revenue. But they just need to keep improving it, even when they start the robotaxi network.
Right.
Okay. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. This also bodes well, I think, for the future for NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Again, not investment advice, but if these companies need to, apply massive compute to build these models and get these 100x increases, now they'll have to continue to spend. Now, the interesting thing, I'll just go back a slide, that they were saying that the improvement comes from better architecture and learning efficiency, not just raw computing power.
Mhm.
So it may not be 100x increase in their spending on NVIDIA. I'm sure Jensen's upset with that. But even if it's a 10x increase or whatever the number is, it's still huge.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Probably saw this overnight, where Tesla is confirming their release roadmap. And this is kind of exciting. So this month, September, we're going to get version 12.5.2, which they're saying is a 3x improvement in miles between necessary interventions. And also it'll work on hardware 3, and they're now calling it AI 3.
Right.
They're changing the name after the fact. I guess it's just easier to use the same terminology. And it'll be unified for AI 3 and AI 4 models. Actually, Smart Sum and X, people in X have had some fun with this lately. Auto park for Cybertruck, eye tracking with sunglasses, end-to-end network on highway. So this is a big development. We'll finally get AI, on the highway. This is the first, and then FSD on the Cybertruck. So this is a big month.
Big month, huge, massive month.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't think there's any pressure on the employees at Tesla right now to get a lot of stuff done by 10/10.
None. None. I'm sure everything is calm. And this, what's nice about this is not even talking about, delivery expectations for Q3. I haven't heard a peep about that.
Right.
But, well, I have heard a peep. I've heard that actually they're looking pretty solid. This actually could be a really strong quarter.
Might get close to 500,000.
Yeah, could be a record. We'll see. Again, to me, that matters much less than the developments that you see on this page.
Much less, much less.
And then October, we're looking at unpark, park, and reverse in FSD. And we've already seen the capables with actually Smart Summon, and we've already seen the car is capable of reversing. We've seen videos of that.
Right.
So why couldn't FSD do that? Well, it will. And then V13 with 6x improved miles between necessary interventions. Now, I wish that Tesla would actually share some data with this, because
I do too.
the crowdsourced data source is less than to be desired. It's not really showing much of an improvement. So I would love Tesla to be able to be a bit more forthcoming with the data here.
Right.
And then for our European and Chinese friends, FSD in Europe in Q1 and in China in Q1.
Yep.
And then for our right-hand drive friends in the UK, in Australia, New Zealand, Q1 to Q2, Elon chimed in later after this was posted.
I see. Okay.
So that's exciting for them too. So this is some big developments here. And then finally, Randy, we have this morning from Morgan Stanley, Adam Jonas. You have read this as well. I'm curious about your thoughts on this piece.
I didn't read it in detail because I was really jammed, and so I thought I would be halfway impressed by what you found out.
Okay. So he highlights here, and I didn't include the chart, but I'll just verbalize it, that he highlights that Tesla's underperformed, being down 50% from its all-time high.
Right.
It's significantly underperformed other mega cap tech companies over the last 3 years. Right. And he's saying, well, maybe, earnings have something to do with it, and it's been a tough EV market. Fine. That we know, right? We're aware of that. Nothing new there. And then he goes on and talks about is their auto business profitable? Right. So he's saying they forecast for this year that they'll have operating income of 5.6 billion. And they're backing out their forecast for the regulatory credits of 2.3 billion and energy operating income of 1.1 billion. So that reduces the core auto operating income down to 2.2 billion. Okay. And then they say, well, not disclosed by the company, we can easily account for 100% of this remainder with captive dealer margin and a range of recurring revenue streams, including connectivity, charging, software services, upgrades, FSD, et cetera, implying remaining operations, mostly EVs, to be loss-making this year. Now, Elon has said in the past that it wouldn't be a bad strategy for them to sell EVs at cost or even at a loss. Right. So I'm not overly concerned about this if this is true. So anyway, we'll see. I don't know why Wall Street analysts are so fixated on the core EV business
Right.
at this point. And it's fine to back out, everything else is doing well. Like if I was running Tesla, I would be excited that energy is contributing. I'd be excited to get the regulatory credits, which are not going away because other automakers are backing down on their plans to make EVs. So I would use that to my competitive advantage. And
Sure.
fine, if my core auto business is not making money on a standalone basis, that's great. Makes me more competitive. Right? Okay. And then he's talking about Robotaxi Day in Hollywood. It says, while we're bullish on the very long-term potential for autonomous vehicles to transform surface transport networks, we urge our clients to keep expectations well managed for the near term. This is bold. This is like the most important thing in this whole paper. Keep your expectations low.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fine. I don't know why he needs to bold that. To me, this, yeah. So apparently invitations have been sent out. Randy, did you get yours?
No, I believe that's incorrect. I believe they've made a
Yeah.
mistake.
I'll check my mailbox later and
Yeah.
see if mine arrived. By the way, if anybody gets one and wants a friend plus one, let us know.
Yeah, let us know for sure.
Anyway, their expectations are a demonstration of the latest iteration of FSD version 12.5 or later, a demonstration of a fully autonomous cybercab in what we expect to be a closed, semi-closed course. And then they're saying, we note that according to the California DMV website, Tesla has a permit for autonomous vehicle testing with the driver, but does not currently hold a permit for autonomous vehicle testing or deployment without the driver. And that may be why they need to do it in a closed course,
Yep.
in this Warner Brothers studio lot. Okay. A few other things, and this to me falls in the kind of the crazy camp. I'm sorry, we'll just have to wait for that. There we go. So he says, Elon Musk said in the delay and timing of the original Robotaxi event was meant to give the company extra time to show off a few other things. Could we see an electric plane? No. A boat? I think he's barking up the wrong tree with these two things.
Yes.
The latest generation Optimus robot flipping burgers at a Tesla diner? Well, maybe. And he says, we're not really sure. He's not very imaginative here. And I'm sorry, I don't know what else. I couldn't find what else, how this continued. I'm not sure what the few other things were besides those. But after reading those ideas, I was sort of not that interested in reading further.
Yeah, so the diner is just down the block. I hadn't thought about that. So I wonder if they'll have the diner open in time for the 10/10 event, where people can pop over and check out the diner.
Yeah, we shared some images a week or two back. It looked to me like there was a ways to go, but maybe they can rush that construction along.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
That'd be fun. Although, if they're expecting maybe 500 or 600 for the show, maybe more, I don't know. And then I think that diner, it looked to me like it only had parking for maybe 18, was it, or 24? It's not a lot.
I think they should get U2 to play on the roof.
There you go. Me too. Oh, I know.
U2.
U2, those guys, yeah.
Yeah, where the streets have no name.
All right. Well, that's
all right. And then Randy, we've got to finish it up with something light. Here's a nice little cartoon of I don't know if these are the clowns from the Fed, but they're in a FOMO vehicle. Yeah. It must be a Robotaxi because I don't really see who's actually driving this. Perhaps the dog is. Perhaps indeed.
Oh, yeah. My goodness. Yeah, well, FOMO is happening. We don't know. This is again Friday at probably Friday when this is released. So you may be looking at it sometime Friday afternoon, but at least on Thursday, we were continuing to see a really nice advance. As we end this program today, we were up almost 10 again on Thursday. Who knows where it ended yesterday or what it's doing on Friday, but I think I continue. I know that we will never, ever be able to get Cern to give us any kind of estimates of price targets, but mine is 265 before the event and 300 once we have either full on level 5, drive it from the back seat. Might be more than 300 at that point, but let's say 300 as a minimum once that happens. So other than that, any closing remarks, thoughts, intelligent things to say? Because, you know, that's why I have you on here.
Yes, I would say as it relates to the stock price, watch our video from the previous day. If you
Yes.
feel so inclined to focus on the stock price. We give a little bit longer term perspective on the stock from Tesla's IPO date. And then I would say that, you know, as a stock investor, the key factor is time.
Yeah.
Right? Because most of the time the stock marks time, and every now and then you get a rapid increase in the price, right? We've seen that historically with Tesla and other companies. This notion that stocks return, you know, 10% per year on average, that's great. That's an average, but most of the time stocks do absolutely nothing. And I would say that, you know, when you are a farmer, you don't harvest your crop every day, right? You plant your crop, you tend to the crop, right? There's a growing season. It takes time. You have to be patient. There's setbacks along the way. There's storms. There's all kinds of things, right? Bug infestations, et cetera, you got to deal with, right? And then you get to harvest. And I would say the same thing is true with investors. Don't try to harvest your stock every day. You make that investment, you stick with it, and then at some point in the future, you get to harvest it. Maybe that time frame is longer than you want it to be. And I'm sorry, there's no guarantees here. Microsoft went 14 years before it eclipsed the previous high. And it went down a lot in that 14 years. Right? And Steve Ballmer is now richer than Bill Gates because he didn't sell the shares and diversify. So he wasn't a good manager of Microsoft necessarily, but boy, he was a good investor.
Well, that sounds like brilliant advice. And speaking of brilliant advice, if I was going to name my company, oh no, you got it. You've got the
sorry,
name.
that's taken, Randy. You can't use that.
Man. And what do you
Yeah.
what do you do over there? Oh yeah, you help people with their stock and financial decisions. Is that correct?
We do. We help people. There's two things that we do is we build a financial plan. Now, not that everybody knows where they're going, but if you have some general idea, then at least you can work towards that, knowing that that route may change along the way. And then from there, we want to build a portfolio to support those goals, right? It's pretty simple. Your investment shouldn't be just viewed in isolation, right? Unless you have all the money in the world and you don't need any of it, then fine. But for most people, that's not the case, right? So yes, we help with the planning side and then the actual implementation of the investments as well.
All right. So if you want some brilliant advice, you can watch my channel 3 times a day. Or you can go where the brand really means something over there and check out Cern Basher. All right, Cern, thank you so much as always for coming on board, and to all of you out there, it has been great talking to you.
Thanks, Randy. That was brilliant.